Well, hello there and welcome to the kitchen of the dollhouse. And what are we cooking up today, folks? Well, another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for April 17th, the day of serious purpose. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of serious purpose. We have what appears to be, what is it? Boom! It looks to be a fish with a mast and a sail as a dorsal fin. Don't know what kind of fish, but hey, does that really matter? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. A lot of times these visual representational images are rather enigmatic, all right? Can't really make hide nor hair of why they chose them. On occasion, we can kind of make an association, but again, oftentimes not. That said, not altogether all too important, the visual representational image. Not when it's April 17th and it's somebody's birthday. So if today's your birthday, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? That's what's important around these here parts. That said, sometimes these videos find folks late, and if that's the case, well, I hope you had a happy birthday, all right? And that said, a lot of times folks like to join us randomly, or more ideally, fingers crossed, to celebrate the day. And if that's the case, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before and you know what's going on, or you just want to get to the redirect, well, hey, skip ahead in the chapters, all right? I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And oh, what's this? Doubles again, folks. Straight to jail today, all right? This is the third day in a row I think I've rolled doubles. 2 and a 2 for 4. And what does that mean? Well, my friends, as I often hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be will often put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations to some extent. But oftentimes, as we get through in this world, we're very narrow of focus, all right, or singular of mind, right? We're just going after, doing to the job or the errands that we have to run. We're not apt to see the things that cross our path, or we may just lend them very little credence. So this is a little bit of an experiment to help you drop those blinders and maybe pick up on such things. How do you do that though? Well, you need a little help recognizing those things. And so you need a bit of a signpost, if you like. What could that be? That's right, a mutually agreed upon sign from between you and the higher powers that be, your daily numbers. Now, you don't have to go with what I rolled for you. The intention is here, but it's probably advisable you get your own set of dice if you want to try this out. And then what do? Well, you just pick a place that's near and dear to your heart, and you set out, all right? Ascribe directional values to number sets, say 1 through 3 would be north, 4 through 6 would be east, and so on. And you can even get into the nitty gritty, like yeses and nos for evens and odds, or left and right for evens and odds. And then time limits with which to go in those directions. Like I said, once you get that all figured out, hey, pick a place near and dear to your heart or someplace you haven't explored and get out there. But take off those blinders. Like I said, you never know. The day might also start to present certain things into your path, all right? Take on a theme if you like, outside your daily numbers, all right? You get that daily number, you're going to look for it. You're 22, you're 4. Who's to say, all right? It may be an address you end up stopping in front of, okay? Hey, you know what? Perfect sign you're on the right path. You might even go one better, roll the dice for yes and no as to whether you should go in there, all right? See what you see. Maybe you go in there and hey, it's a fish shop, all right? Hey, the theme's starting up already with the fish or the herring if we take the visual representational image into account. Or maybe the sales, maybe it's an antique shop and they got a bunch of ships and bottles. You never know. I know I don't see sales all too often, so a little bit of an anomaly. That said, you never know what the theme might be, okay? But so you got to stay eagle-eyed. You might start seeing certain things appearing on bus benches and advertisements or crossing your path, all right? That said, maybe you roll the dice and you do the time limits multiple times and you're not seeing much of anything. Hey, never fret, all right? That might be the plan of the day there for the universe if you like. Maybe as you get on with your third, your fourth roll, you're about to give up faith in this whole process. Hey, you know what? Maybe an old friend from high school crosses your path, all right? And if you hadn't stopped taking things in, kept rolling, kept staying with the process, you wouldn't have met them, you wouldn't have ran across them, all right? It's got to line things up for you, right? Sometimes that takes some time. That said, you know what? Maybe they're asking why you're rolling dice. Let them know what's going on. Hey, this wasn't my idea. It was some loon on the internet. And you tell them what's up. They have to say, that's pretty crazy. You'll say, I understand, but I had to shake things up on my birthday. So yeah, that whole thing's crazy too. What's even crazier, it's my birthday also. Hey, you never know. It could be something as crazy as that, all right? Or something entirely different. Who's to say? Or maybe they got a shirt on and there's a fish with a sail on its back. I don't know. But that said, I think you get the idea with synchronicity. And hey, if you get more people involved, even better. Because as I hear it also told, the more people who are focused on the same thing, you're apt to beget greater results. So get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. See, taste, touch, smell, intuit, just a little bit of that kind of magic, those things lining up. You're apt to see what I'm on about. All right, I think you get the idea. Let's get into the read. Here we go. Your month is April. Your day is the 17th. Your sign is 26 to 28 degrees Aries of the Aries III period specifically. And your quality and element is Cardinal fire. All right, let's dive in, shall we? April 17th, the day of serious purpose. Those born on April 17 carry a strong sense of their own power while at the same time exhibiting an adventuresome spirit and leadership qualities. These are definitely people who expect to be listened to when they speak. As a matter of fact, being ignored in any matter is extremely difficult for them to handle. They know that they count, that they are important, and often they expect that others will pay respect and follow them to the ends of the earth if necessary. Some born on this day make a quiet impression at first, but one can nevertheless feel the force submerged in them. And if an April 17th person is yet unaware of his or her power urges, it will only be a matter of time before some crucial incident in life brings these to the fore. Those born on this day may be deeply interested in philosophy or religion, for powerful ideas often attract powerful people. They may also seek to ally themselves or ally themselves with strong individuals and institutions. And for them, everything that is established of a social nature is to be defended and served to the fullest. Yet they also despise bullies and will seek to bring down those who abuse privilege or position. Those born in this day may themselves come from quite humble backgrounds, but never forget their roots. April 17 people cherish their willpower and sharply reasoning mind above all else. They have a kind of shrewdness or cunning that will lead them out of the most difficult situations. In this respect, they are amoral, so they must beware of lending their energies to unscrupulous or underhanded endeavors, which will eventually catch up with them no matter how high they rise. More highly evolved April 17 people put their power directly in service of others, particularly those weaker and more vulnerable who cannot protect themselves. Unevolved April 17 people may be carried away by egotism and greed, and desire to indulge the pleasures of the mind as well as the body can become an all-consuming pursuit for some of those born on this day. Learning to be less possessive by giving up material possessions from time to time will be an important lesson for them to learn. Actually, every individual born on this day should beware of selfishness, especially in the name of family, where it passes a filial or parental responsibility. Eventually, these individuals may come to realize that they are part of one human family and find a realistically helpful role relative to the common good. In April 17 people take themselves seriously, perhaps too much so. They have to remember to laugh at themselves from time to time and discover a lighter side of life. Perhaps cultivate pastimes. And they should also try to be less judgmental. It is very important to them to live and let live, and the sooner, the better. Well, all right. This was a particularly unique birthday breakdown today. We're kind of we've just transitioned out of the Aries II period and we're on into Aries III. I think the first day of it was yesterday, day before yesterday, but in any event, we're getting on to newer things, evolving into different forms. And so here today, you've definitely got a lot of Aries qualities, but they're taking on different kinds of, more evolved type qualities. They're different too. Some seemingly lesser evolved also, but hey, you know what? I like to provide a little bit of a commentary, get into some of the things I found interesting, things that relate to the period. And hey, let's just dive into it, shall we? See what we see. Let's see. You're said to convey a strong sense of your own power with an adventuresome spirit and leadership qualities. The reading claims you expect to be heard when you choose to speak, which, despite being what I would think is an intrinsic expectation for anyone by virtue of talking, right? But this is a trait that has come specifically for Aries III individuals. So for you, it must be a palpable point of contention, I would argue, considering it's conveyed in the most pointed of ways here. And that's in comparison to the other days where it popped up. Here for you, it's very emphasized. That said, I do appreciate that they know you are important, and that you know you're important, rather, because far too many people don't. All right, but I do think expecting others to pay respect sounds borderline self-important. All right, especially if you haven't earned it. All right, respect is earned. So from the outset, I'm feeling as though you'll get recommendations to manage your expectations here as we get on with the read. Who's to say? That's just my prediction. That said, I do know leaders who cultivate a strong presence utilizing these dynamics. So I know it works, all right? But a lot of times it's all facade and bravado, okay? And behind that facade, it's often other people, the boots on the ground type leaders who often of a lesser rank who are doing all the real work, all right? And it's hard to respect people who aren't, have some bark behind that bite. So just throwing that out there. Hopefully you agree as well. So I'd say to ensure that there's some substance behind that facade is a worthwhile endeavor there. Otherwise, it's just set dressing that can fall apart upon further examination, or if a real issue comes to the fore and you don't have the skills that it takes to overcome such things. And I know from personal experience that to be the case. But moving on, this defense of social establishments and bringing down the likes of bullies, all right, takes many Aries and Aries III qualities to what I would assume are the highest evolution, okay? Thus far, perhaps even maybe its final form. Who's to say? It hasn't really been brought up, but we can see little spits and spatters and hints of as much. As most early Aries individuals, whilst concerned for such things, personal interest was much more the interest in their case, all right? But I also appreciate this coming from humble roots and remembering where you come from elements that they mentioned, which I'd say is the exact counterbalance that's needed for the initially mentioned expectations for respect, all right? Especially if warnings of amoral shrewdness or clever schemes are apt to catch up with you, all right? Take that as a warning, because they interviewed a lot of people for each of these days. And so if they mention that, it's probably applied to a lot of those folks. So fair warning, all right? Don't poo-poo the things that they recommend here. All right. So much like the advice that other Aries 2s and 3s get, the reading claims putting in your effort to serving others is going to garner you more attention that you're after than chasing after it for its own sake. All right, that comes up quite often these periods, okay? So put yourself in service to others when you can is the takeaway. That said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, here we go. Those born on the 17th of the month are ruled by the number 8, as 1 + 7 = 8, and by the planet Saturn. April 17th people may be unduly attached to material possessions, and Saturn, which carries with it a strong feeling of limitation and restriction, may add to this problem. In addition, Saturn tends to carry a judgmental aspect as well, increasing the already present tendency of April 17th people to be overly severe in their criticism of others. However, the combined influences of Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, and Saturn can sometimes cause them to become too accommodating and self-effacing in order to gain the adulation they need. The number 8 carries a conflict between the material and the spiritual worlds, and those ruled by the number 8 can be lonely and also prone to indulge in excess. All right, I think we picked up on a little bit of that as they mentioned in the breakdown. Interesting. That said, back to the commentary. What do I have to say about your numbers and your planets? The Aries period, it's been a weird one, all right? The typical conventions that I picked up in the rest of the book, and I kind of lead with when I get into the numbers and planets, they don't necessarily apply for some reason. So we have these kinds of things here today. I would say in no small part, they kind of apply to the convention, but hey, we got to get into the notes and see if I noticed anything else. Let's get into it here. The number 8 in the contractive planet Saturn, speaking to structure and taking responsibility through the exertion of strong authority and strong personal values elsewhere mentioned in the book. And a feeling of limitation and restriction, which could be realized as an attachment to material possessions here, they said for you today. An idea I don't remember coming across in some time, maybe if ever, all right? So give that its consideration, all right? Saturn is often a planet said to convey conservative natures, all right? Also cold exteriors, but a warm heart. None of that was mentioned here for you today, all right? But as conservative and down to earth as the past few days have been, it could be that Mars is really grounding that dynamic for you with its god of war-like energy and adventuresome ambition, and not necessarily lending you much assistance to Saturn's otherwise intrinsic qualities, and perhaps heightening this self-effacing self-confidence. It's possible, all right? That is, assuming those qualities don't exist, all right? You might have a cold exterior and warm heart, but they just didn't have room to put it in the entry. I would say a lot of that happens. But rather personalized numbers and planets today, not always the case, but in between this and the upcoming section, if they're going to personalize something, it tends to be that. So I'm happy that they personalized it for you. That said, that's been your numbers and planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home and start dealing out the cards to see how it predicts our future or whatever it's used. So let's just see what it has to say and then leave it here in the book. Oftentimes it can serve as a metaphor and it seems to inform the breakdown in some cases. So it can be pretty interesting to read. Other times, not really. So we just have to see how it shakes out. Let's get into it here. In the major arcana, the 17th card is the Star, which shows a beautiful naked girl under the stars pouring refreshing water on the parched earth with one pitcher and reviving the stagnant waters of a pond with the other. She represents the glories of the earthly life, but also material enslavement to it. And the stars above her are an eternal reminder of the spiritual world. April 17th people are thus warned against excessive physicality at the expense of something higher. All right, hey, they buttoned it for you. They personalized it just a little bit. Tends to be the typical fare if they do personalize the tarot. All right, otherwise it's just a copy-paste job. But at least they related it to you specifically. Sometimes it doesn't happen, as I said. But what did I have to say about it? I wrote a little bit here. The star representing the glory of earth and material enslavement to it, or the restriction of attachment to material possessions, I would say. All right. I know that seems far too on the nose, and maybe that they seeded that into the numbers and planets entry from the tarot, and maybe to help make it apply. But I honestly don't recall this coming up all that often. Okay. So I wouldn't poo-poo the notion once again. Whomever you are, regardless, your birthday, all right? I would say it's good advice. Furthermore, with the consideration to aspire to something more than an earthly grounded physical life, This is a very common lean the opposite way kind of suggestion, kind of like what we mentioned before with the breakdown. Whereas there's oftentimes a head in the clouds kind of mentality for some other folks. And those types are recommended to come down to earth, okay? But like I said, I think it's a fair suggestion if the breakdown applies. But all of that to say, rather apt card, I would say, all right? The things that were mentioned and are said to be represented by the star, they applied in the breakdown as they wrote it. So pretty interesting. Like I said, doesn't always shake out that way, but it did for you today. All right. That said, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. Here we go. Those born on April 17 must beware of all forms of excess and indulgence, whether sex, drugs, food, or drink. They may fall into certain addictive patterns through feeling lonely or misunderstood. To control their weight, which can really shoot up if they are depressed, it says in parentheticals, they should avoid saturated fats, excessive meats, rich sauces, and cake. All right? And if those born in this day can manage to find a suitable vocation, enjoy the company of one or two good friends, and live with someone who loves them, they will have a good chance of stabilizing their emotions. As a way of relaxing, yoga may work. Also, travel, particularly adventuresome holidays, will do wonders to keep them lively and focused for the rest of the year. All right. Hey, you know what? This was a break with the typical convention of a health entry for the Aries period writ large. They put in some advice for dietary foods, specific foods, here to avoid, not necessarily to incorporate, but to avoid. And that's largely something they haven't been doing for Aries. Another one of the Aries anomalies that I mentioned there. That said, I'm probably burning down everything I have to say. Let's get back into the notes here. They said, beware of excessive indulgence. All right, we kind of picked up on this in no small part between the breakdown and the planets, numbers and planets. So they're tripling down again, all right? But with concerns for addiction, loneliness, and misunderstanding, I'm glad they bring it up again, all right? Because that's a whole different arm and tangent within that same category that they didn't explore. So it's good to know about it, and it must apply, all right, if they're bringing it up. So like I said, I'm glad they brought it up for you. It's also fair, and it hasn't come up this period. So be advised of the risk, okay? Even though you probably already know. It's replete in everything these days. It's the avoidance of very specific foods, like I said, is an anomaly. It also extends to your social life, they said, with the getting partnerships and the like to help keep you in a stable state of mind. Makes sense, though, I would say, all right? That said, early Aries folks, they could attract friendships like no other, but they didn't really care about it. They were pretty nonchalant about it. They were more focused on getting into their passions and the things they were good at. And all those things would come to them and they would just kind of slough it off, all right? And a lot of times they would arouse antagonisms ostensibly from people who were jealous that they were so easygoing at so far as attracting people. So why do I bring that up? I would say that this kind of is a little bit of a different dynamic there, all right? So maybe because of Aries III, who's to say? But again, something notable and different there because it was almost replete through Aries 1 specifically and came up once or twice in Aries 2. But again here, the dynamic's shifting, all right? So let's see, we got specific exercises is something that they typically bring up in a health entry. Here, didn't really get into it too much, all right, outside of finding a suitable vocation that you can enjoy. And that's not even really that specific to that. So typically a Mars day, when Mars is an influence, you'll see strenuous or vigorous exercise recommendations so they can exercise rather that god of warlike energy. Sometimes even combative sports are mentioned, but not really any of that's here for you outside of the yoga to relax. And I would say that's not really exercise for exercise's sake. That said, why I'm getting to the point I'm getting to here is for Aries, that hasn't been here, okay? They say that Aries folks are doers and in getting after their everyday typical activities, they get their necessary exercise. So when and if they decide to do it, moderation for some reason. And I think there was 1 or 2 days where they said that some of these folks, they go for strenuous or vigorous exercise and not to do it because they risk injuring themselves. They already get enough of it. But if they have to, moderate, all right? pretty interesting. Again, Aries anomaly. Did I get everything else? Oh, they said to go on vacation. That is an anomaly for the period writ large. Typically, I mean, it comes up pretty often with a lot of the other periods, the other zodiacs periods, but not here in Aries. So that's just for you, okay? So that being said, that's been your health. Oh, and I do forget the Aries body. Aries is the head and the neck. So be mindful of some chiropractic if you have if you have any issues there. And tooth decay often comes, or not often, well, often in the book it comes up when the head is a body area, but it was only mentioned once this period, all right? So I wanted to make you aware. Also headaches if stress is a thing in your life. So find a way to get rid of that anxiety and the stress in your life so that you don't get the headaches, all right? So I just wanted to mention that for you because it's been sorely lacking, another anomaly. That said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go, as if we haven't got enough already, right? Try to be less critical of others. Also, beware of becoming too dependent on having their approval. Interesting. Don't know that I saw that really in there. Seek spiritual as well as physical activity. Lighten up. Remember to have fun. All right. And set easy tasks for yourself as well as difficult ones. All right, hey, let's dive in. Let's dive into the advice. I messed up the camera transition. I had to write this in the book because I ran out of space on the notebook, so bear with me. I might stumble and fumble here a bit. They said try to be less critical. All right, Aries folks have a penchant for stirring up antagonists, like I mentioned. All right, even the warmest natured individuals, they just come to them eventually, ostensibly out of jealousy, as I mentioned. And so I say all that to say you don't need to give people a good reason to be an antagonist, all right? So being critical of folks can sow dissent sometimes, all right? It's also a bad look, and it also comes off with bully vibes, I would say. And we know who doesn't like bullies, all right? Don't become one yourself. They said beware dependence on approval, all right? It's interesting this came up. It might have been in there kind of between the lines. I didn't really get an idea if that applied to you. That said, could it be a form of excessive indulgence? I don't know. You need to get kind of built up a little bit, and it's not really necessary. I don't know. It certainly has an air of insecurity in it there, too. So, hey, you want to avoid that, right? It's a bad look. May also speak to the dangers of egotism, perhaps. I don't know, all right? Yeah, also insecurity. I think I mentioned that already. Yep. They said seek spiritual and physical activities, all right? Expand Saturn's constrictive nature, I would say, all right? And or Mars's overgrounding nature. I would see consider your philosophy and your religious interest bent, all right? At least for its own sake and not just as a means to, as an avenue to meet influential people, all right? It kind of seemed like that might be the only reason you were doing it, depending upon how you read, how that entry read. Also gives you a break from your general concerns to consider things outside yourself, the things that aren't material, if you like. They said have fun, okay? Common recommendation in so many days as it happens. Aries 3, you aren't alone in that respect, okay? You don't always have to chase success, I would say, because that's kind of what it sounded like you were doing. They said set easy tasks as well as hard ones. Don't really understand where this one came from, but I would say it might be a way to test yourself, get out of your typical routine. Not sure, but there's also a reward in things that are unrelated to everyday life, all right? Or at least your everyday life and more related to everyday life and everyday tasks, okay? Also, it's more in line with a typical convention, okay? I would say it's also humbling, so kind of a chop wood, carry water kind of thing. Chopping wood and carrying water, not necessarily hard insofar as medial tasks, but it can be hard, all right? Also, maybe something more complicated just to keep you active and, I don't know, bring you more down to earth in some respects if you're getting a little bit out of sorts up here. Again, they did say you like to stick to your roots, all right? So maybe that's part of what does that for you. That said, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right, it's your birthday. You get something to think about, all right? Like I said, you got to have a little bit of that spiritual and philosophical, spiritual aspect. Maybe that's this. Here we go. Laughter is the best medicine. Oh, I'm sure we've heard it time and time again, but they picked this out for you. Laughter is the best medicine. All right. Why'd they pick it out for you? Hey, I have an idea, but guess what? I'm not going to tell you, all right? Your birthday, your meditation. I don't want to influence it for you one way or the other. That said, your meditation in the can. Let's move on. Your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's see if they're things we've heard already or if they're things that are new to us, all right? So your strengths, we start off with well-grounded. All right, let's say we knew that one, right? With our planetary influences, should they apply. Also strong-willed, same can be said, and responsible. All right. Say we knew all those. But your weaknesses, oh, what could those be? All right, let's get into it here. It says you're overly critical. Okay. Judgmental. Hey, you know what? They might kind of be the same a little bit. And also grim. Interesting with grim. I don't think I've seen this pop up in the book before. Oftentimes I like to say our strengths are going to help us overcome our weaknesses. But I also like to argue our weaknesses can be strengths in unto themselves. So let's see if I can make a case today. I have a penchant to flounder in this respect, so let's see what I can do here. How can your strengths help you overcome your weaknesses? You're well-grounded. Hey, you know what? You got the foundations there and you know how to stick to it. So I'd say you're going to be on the ground level with getting after figuring out how to address these weaknesses. It may be on just a very base level, all right? Some folks are trying to attack it from the top, all right? And you know what? You got to get the foundations out. I don't know. Maybe speaking too metaphorically, but well-grounded, you start with an established base, all right, on how to get after it. Strong-willed, hey, the foundations might be thick and strong, but you've got the wherewithal to keep chipping at them, all right? Also responsible, hey, I would say that you're going to take the necessary steps, even if they're otherwise unsavory and or things people don't necessarily want to do, to get after improving upon your weaknesses. Other folks might not have the wherewithal to do the unsavory things, all right? But it said you're shrewd or clever, yeah, so you're gonna do as much. But I would also say, hey, you're gonna do what's necessary and within the confines of what's correct. Okay, so the bullies they might decide to do things a little more unlawfully. Hey, you're gonna do things the right way, I would say, if you're responsible. Okay, I'm totally floundering on this one, but it's so simple. Maybe that's why I can't get it out. All right, you're well grounded. I'm sure you understand. Let's move on. How can your weaknesses be strengths? All right. You're overly critical. All right. I can see how it's a weakness. People are going to look at this like this guy just won't get off of me or this gal, who's to say? And that antagonism starts to brew. But if you're overly critical, it means you're picking out the things that aren't jiving with the project or the task at hand, okay? And sometimes those things need to get picked out and addressed, even though it might, some folks might not like you for it. It's just what needs to get done, okay? Oftentimes, too, a lot of people don't want to mention it, all right? That's a strength, all right? And it said you do that. I can't remember the exact wording, but you air your voice and you make it heard and you expect results. And again, it's going to arouse some antagonism. But I would say be balanced with it. Know when to go on the attack. That's a huge leadership lesson, because if folks are just constantly doing it, it wears out its welcome, all right? So you got to be balanced with it. Some folks also don't need to be pressured and attacked. You can just ask them to do the job and they'll go after it. But if you start whipping them, you know what? They're bound to revolt. So again, I understand. A balance. It says you're judgmental. I would also say that's in line with being overly critical, all right? You're going to judge the job and how it's being done. Sometimes that needs to be done, especially if you're a supervisor. You're going to let people know where they lie, all right? What they're doing that's good and what they're doing that's bad. Now I could see how it's a negative, because maybe you're getting too into the weeds with things that they're doing that's not great, or maybe they're doing just fine, but you decide to break them down a piece for no just reason, just because you're being judgmental. I don't know. Again, balance. Maybe somebody does need that in your life, but you got to know the individuals that need it and the other ones who don't prosper with it. Like I said, it's more just, more overly critical kind of, but maybe a different kind of vein, all right? That said, you're grim. How can that be a strength? All right, I said you anticipate pitfalls. I had to write these ones down so I wouldn't forget. You also anticipate obstacles because you maybe kind of are assuming the worst will happen. Other folks who are more optimistic, hey, you know what, they might not think that far ahead down the line of things that otherwise may not happen. But what if they do? All right. You've already kind of got it in your mind what could happen. So you're that much farther down the road with maybe how to come to a solution. He also has a realistic outlook. Hey, the world is otherwise malevolent sometimes, okay? If not always, okay? So having that grim aspect or outlook is more realistic. It's more grounded, if you like. Also, you're emotionally hardened, I would say. If you're anticipating the worst, you've already got it in your heart that it could happen. So you're somewhat more prepared for the worst, all right? Emotionally hardened. So, that said, did I make the best case? Certainly not with responsible, right? And hey, maybe it's responsible of me to be critical of as much. Oh, there we go. Hey, there you go. That's how you do it, maybe, perhaps. That said, I think you get the point. Your strengths are going to help you overcome your weaknesses if they even need to be improved upon at all, all right? Well, but like I said, hey, your weaknesses, don't get rid of them altogether because they could be strengths and they're part of who you are. All right. That said, your strengths and weaknesses in the can. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is look at it from a vantage of chasing down our passions or purpose in life. Because I meet a lot of individuals who are just hitting the alarm clock, rolling out of bed, and going to work and punching a clock. And what are they doing on the weekends? They're just rallying to do it again. Where's the meaning in life? All right. I think that we need a purpose and a passion to chase after to make it more fulfilling. So if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're doing as much. All right. Or and hopefully I can just plant the seed for you if you aren't. All right. So that you can start doing the work that's required to sometimes figure those things out. I would say it's hard to figure out what your passion is, let alone put into work to do so. But you got to start somewhere, right? So maybe we can take some inspiration from those folks to share your company and got in the book and see why they got in the book, all right? So let's dive into it. That said, you already have a passion and a purpose. Well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. Let's just see who shares your company. Here we go. We start off, and this one you might see, it lines up perfectly with the day. J.P. Morgan, all right? Financier and the most powerful turn-of-the-century businessman and art collector. We also have Nikita Khrushchev, okay, a Soviet premier. Hey, these are some people with some serious purpose, all right? Let's see how many more. We have Sirimavo Bandaranaike, first woman prime minister of Sri Lanka. No, I butchered that name. And then it says Ven Ceylon, or Ceylon perhaps. Another country? Not quite sure. It says elected to succeed assassinated husband. Interesting. That's kind of grim too, all right? But they have that experience in the bag and they can persevere after, I would argue. We also have Isaac Dinesen. It says, in parentheses, Karen Blixen, so perhaps a different name there, pen name, I don't know. Danish writer and coffee plantation manager, responsible for work by the title of Out of Africa. We also have Tamar Lane, a 14th century conqueror, all serious purpose there. We also have, here we go, Raphael I Bidawid, a Chaldean Catholic Church patriarch. Boy, a lot of words today. Konstantinos Kavafis, says Cavafy, Greek poet of Alexandria. Thornton Wilder, two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, finally one I can say. Claire Francis, British writer, adventurer, and it says sailed around the world. We also have William Holden, a film actor. Harry Reasoner, a TV journalist of 60 Minutes fame. Cynthia Osnick, a poet, essayist, and novelist of a work by the name of Trust. Was that the John Getty, or was it, I'm not sure it was John, but the oil tycoon whose grandson was kidnapped? Maybe. Jan Hammer, a Czech jazz fusion keyboardist, bassist, and composer, responsible for the Miami Vice theme, if I do believe, though it doesn't say that here. We also have Buster Williams, a jazz bassist. Also have Lindsay Anderson, a British film director, responsible for This Sporting Life and Oh Lucky Man! Exclamation point. Don Kirshner, rock concert promoter and a TV host. We also have Olivia Hussey, a British film actress. Robert Wood, CBS president. Siegfried Jerusalem, a German tenor, and George Adamski, a UFO expert. Hey, that's the first one there, all right? All right. That said, you know what? The field of plays wide open. There was only a few different names in there I recognized, and then a lot of them. Wow. That said, I butchered many a name in there today. Let's make up for it on my side. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't necessarily work for me, all right? Especially with the foreign names and of countries I've never heard of. That said, like I said, hey, hopefully I'm just helping you plant the seeds, start figuring out your own passions, all right? Because if there's anything I wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're figuring that out. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say your season is spring, your sign once again is Aries, of the Aries III period specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal fire. And this has been April 17th, the day of serious purpose. Don't know that we made a case for the fish with the mast and sail on as a dorsal fin, but hey, not necessary, all right? Not what's important. And this has been Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this giant tome here down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls. So if you're interested in checking those out, give them a look. This makes an excellent coffee table book for those one or two friends, loved ones you need to help get you rallied around relaxing and not feeling lonely, or whatever the advice was there for you. You know what? If you're holding a party or something, you don't quite know how to get the ice broken, this is going to do it for you in a figurative and also literal fashion, considering its girth. All right. So, you know what? Get the party started off right, or have it end on a note. As I say, people are going to leave remembering. That said, book having been relayed, not altogether all too important, not when it's someone's birthday. So, once again, if your birthday is April 17th, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? But for everybody else who joined us out of curiosity or to celebrate, I just want to say, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. You join us for your birthday. All right. Now, before I forget, let the universe show you it's with you on your side. 2 and a 2 for a 4, or 22. Who's to say? Keep your eyes out for it. And if you see it, you're going to go, whoa, all right, getting weird here. Who's to say? That said, hey, you heard it here. Like I said at the top, happy birthday. All right. Don't poo-poo your conservative nature, but try to expand. All right. Keep getting up on those bullies, but don't become one yourself. All right. Once again, happy birthday. Take care of yourselves.